Alright, on with what we were doing previously. What we want to do now, so we have set a static IP address for our server. What I want to do also is change the computer name to one that is a more human friendly, one that's easily rememberable. Is that a word? Rememberable? That's wrong. One that is human friendly, one that is easy to commit to memory, which is going to come in very handy as you install a number of servers in your domain. It's going to be a lot easier to refer to it by a name that is easy to remember. So we go to change system properties. We get the system properties box. We ask prompted to give a description of what role our machine is going to perform, and I'm just going to write in domain controller. And then I'm going to change to rename this computer, change its domain or work group. Click change. I'm going to say change. I'm going to change the name to the name that the virtual machine has. Oops. Server08 DC1. I'm not going to change the member of our work group. I'm going to take that. That's going to be taken care of a bit later. Just going to leave that. As you see, in order to apply the changes, we have to restart the computer. So I'm just going to click OK and let it restart. So our machine is restarting. As you can see, you're going to continue with the installation of Active Directory Domain Services. Alright, so the machine, you're going to insert Control Alt Delete, enter our password. Machine is starting up. Let's wait for the OB and see what changes have come into effect. Right, so from here we see that, well, our static IP address, our computer now has a name that will be a little easier to remember, still part of our work group, and we still don't have any roles installed. Right, I'm closing that down, starting the server manager. So once you close the OBGUI down, the server manager console basically pops up automatically. Right. So now that we've taken care of that, we have set a static IP, we've given our machine a human-friendly name. We're now going to roles, and we're going to add a role. Highlight that. Wizard pops up, which will take us through the adding of roles to the machine. Select next. What we want to do is install Active Directory Domain Services. So we check that box, we say next. What this does here is provide us a little information about the Active Directory Domain Services, source information about users, computers, and other devices on the network. Basically, as I explained earlier in the screencast, it helps administer, securely manage this information and facilities, resource sharing, and collaboration between users. Okay, so we go next. In the case that the server might need to be restarted, it says after the ADS roles are installed, it suggests that we run DC promo to make it a fully functional domain controller. Alright, we click install, and the Active Directory Domain Services installation process has begun. Alright, here we see that our Active Directory Domain Services have been successfully installed. Following indicates that the following role services will install the Active Directory Domain Controller. However, the machine is not actually a fully functional domain controller as yet. What we have to do is run the DC promo and the domain controller promotion executable file in order to make it a fully functional domain controller. So we just click on DC promo, and the wizard pops up. Gonna use the advanced mode installation, not necessary, but you know, that's what I'm going to do. Click next. This basically gives us some information about Server 2008 backward compatibility or compatibility with older versions of Windows server-based operating systems. What we are doing is creating a new domain in a new forest. You have two options. You want to create a domain controller for an existing forest or for a new forest. No, I didn't. I know I didn't explain the term forest earlier when I gave you relevant terms. But what a forest is, let's start at the beginning. A tree is a collection of one or more domains. A forest is a collection of trees that share a common global catalog. Basically, a global catalog is a centralized database, if you will, that has information with respect to all other domains, so that it can be accessed by all other domain controllers with respect to getting information about any other domain that with which there exists some form of connection or trust relationship. So I'm going to say next. We are prompted to enter fully FQDN, which stands for fully qualified domain name. Example, we're going to call our domain walker.com. What we're basically doing is providing a name over which our server, a boundary, then a territory over which our server is supposed to administer control. Alright, we say next. It's checking to see whether the forest name is already in use. I don't expect it to be, so once it verifies that, installation process is going to continue. NetBIOS domain name is now Walker. We say next. It's asking about the functional level. Basically, what this is asking us to state if there are going to be any other domain controllers in our domain, at what level they're going to be operating at. Server 2008 is more advanced than the Server 203 and Windows 2000. So in order, once it's installed, it needs to know what level the other domain controllers are functioning at so it can communicate to them. Basically, it can dumb itself down to their level. Alright, because it will have facilities that the older versions of the operating system that do not have, and if we were to institute or deploy those facilities, it's going to create problem among the other servers if they are at a lower level. So we're going with Windows Server 2008. You see, it prompts us you will be able to add only domain controllers that are running Windows Server 2008 or later in this forest. That's okay. We say next. Alright, the wizard has selected the additional option of installing the DNS server with the domain controller role. Alright, you can understand why, because they both go hand in hand. Communication on the network going to require some sort of name resolution, because the machines on the network communicate via binary ones and zeros. Why it's a lot easier for us to process human recognizable or human identifiable names. So if we're going to have a domain controller where they're going to have devices on the network communicating with that controller, for us to administer it, you're going to need some sort of name resolution. And as we said, the DNS server is actually a database that maps host names or human recognizable or readable names to IP addresses. So hence the reason why it's selected to install the DNS server also with the domain controller, because they both go hand in hand. They have a symbiotic relationship. We get this little prompt about the DNS server cannot be created because a authoritative parent zone can be found or does not run Windows DNS server. That's alright. We click yes for now. We'll sort all out later on. You have the database folder. Remember I mentioned that the Active Directory is a database file, NTDS. So this is the file. This basically in a case where it's going to be storing the Active Directory file on our machine in the Windows directory, subdirectory. Alright, log folders also going to be stored there, and the sysvol folder. We say next. We are prompted to enter a password that will give us access to the domain controller as the administrator. Once I enter the two correct, when the entries are both correct, It should be right. Here we go. And basically we have a summary.